This is a special edition of the podcast in that it was recorded live from an ATA Canada workshop in Montreal, hosted by LaSalle Canvas, and featuring an all-star lineup of 3 returning guests: Bryden Rowe of Shade Sales Canada, Claude Lebel of Solution Group, and Jamie Gallagher of Multi-Fabric Solutions. And now, let's talk textiles. Hi, I'm Mark Tyrell, and this is Talking Textiles, where we talk to successful companies about their experiences in the fabric industry. This podcast is brought to you by the Canada Division of the Advanced Textiles Association, a not-for-profit trade association representing the international specialty fabric marketplace. Welcome to our listeners to the ATA Talking Textiles podcast. Today is a first in a lot of ways. It's definitely our first live attempt at a live podcast, and in addition to that, this is an all-star cast. We've actually brought back 3 previous guests on the podcast today, and we have with us, in addition to my co-host Alex Capizia. Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
We have Jamie Gallagher from Multi-Build Solutions, Bryden Rowe from Shade Sales Canada, Tense Arch, and Claude Lebel from Solution Group. And the other thing that we're going to try for the first time is to try to do this on a bit bilingual. We've done French and English versions of the podcast in the past, but Claude will answer some questions in French for our Francophone listeners.
Translator.
Yeah.
So we won't know what he's saying. That's okay.
Little
We
surprise.
trust you.
Yeah. Quand tu vas entendre Jamie dans ma phrase, c'est comme should ask for a translation.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
On y va.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for being
Thanks
here.
for being here. So for anyone who's familiar with the podcast, or more importantly, anybody who's not, normally we do a background and kind of an origin story for the guests that we have on. But today's a little bit different because, as I mentioned, these are all 3 past guests. So this is kind of an all-star podcast of sorts. Given that's the case, so we're going to skip the origin stories. For anybody that does want to know a little bit more about the guests that are up here today, either from our live audience or from our podcast audience, you can go back and listen to some previous iterations of the podcast where each of these gentlemen has been on and given that backstory of their businesses and how they got to where they are. So that said, these guests were particularly chosen because they do in an already custom industry some very, very custom work, and often are on the cutting edge of pushing our industry forward and going into different products, and also doing things that are really conceptual in nature and some very, very special projects sort of thing, and a lot of things that have to be conceived on the spot and created from scratch. Basically, it's a lot of reinvention of the wheel. So I think, given that, and also given the fact that you guys are, you're in established businesses, I think we'd all love to know how companies like that go to market. Like, how is it that you go now? And even before maybe saying how you do it today, because I'm sure in a lot of cases, customers find you guys based on projects that you've done and things up to date. But what was it like getting started? And how would you go about getting customers or getting into projects like from the outset? Jamie, I realize that's a loaded question for you because you have so many iterations of your business getting to this point, but we'd love to hear from you guys on that. Peut-être au début de Solertia, comment vous vous présentez, comment vous trouvez
J'avais 5 ans.
trouvez vos clients, en fait?
Au début ou maintenant, ça a toujours été un peu la même chose. Là, notre plus grande clientèle, c'est les architectes. Nos clients prescripteurs qui veulent réaliser des projets avec de la membrane dedans. Et une autre partie, c'est les clients directs. Donc, des gens qui nous connaissent ou qui ont des besoins particuliers puis qui veulent qu'on fasse le design from A to Z, là, avec nous, on fait l'ensemble de l'opération, de la conception, fabrication, installation, l'entretien, on fait la chaîne au complet. Donc, on a des clients qui viennent nous voir directement, mais notre sollicitation, on les fait surtout auprès des architectes, des firmes d'architectes, qui sont nos clients prescripteurs.
OK. C'est des présentations que vous faites avec eux autres?
On fait des lunch and learn. Il y a aussi beaucoup de bouche à oreille. Donc, les gens voient les projets qu'on a faits ou un autre architecte ou des techniciens qui changent de bureau, qui nous emmènent autour de la table, disent, eux, ils ont des solutions en membrane qui sont intéressantes. Donc, on rentre, on présente l'entreprise, on leur présente les opportunités de la membrane. Souvent, ils voient quelque chose qui est assez narrow, ils voient un type de protection solaire ou, quand on rouvre, on va jusqu'à la membrane acoustique. Et des solutions autres que juste la protection solaire. On intéresse beaucoup les architectes qui souvent vont revenir pour faire des lunch and learn, présenter l'architecture textile. Solertia, on fait du custom, on cherche pas à vendre un produit, on cherche à vendre la membrane. Donc, éduquer notre clientèle, connaissent qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire avec la membrane. Évidemment, là, après ça, ils vont vendre des aider. Mais on vend pas un produit, donc on vend vraiment le know-how.
Right. The know-how there. So that's pretty good. I actually picked up on some of that.
As long as you stay at home.
It's interesting because as he talks about lunch and learns and presentations and educational formats, that became a later part that as we dug in, that's where we got to. We started with Sweets catalog. We used the fabric architecture as an advertising vehicle, and then we sent that on to, we signed up architects. That's in the day when you could buy the magazine for designers and architects. So that's how I sort of started. And then we haven't marketed forever. It's just because it's directly with the architectural design community and then networking. So it's where it's become. What's interesting to the group is because we were an industrial-based company, it was very hard to carve out the tension structure, architectural product side of things. And probably even with you, you're in shade, you're in a lane, and then it becomes more custom or design oriented. It is a different mentality, and you've done great because you've created a whole business around this from soup to nuts of design through installation, and we're probably there as well. But that's my story.
Yeah, I caught most of what Claude said. Interesting saying. We do design start to finish, and we haven't done a lot of lunch and learns. We're starting to do that more.
Okay.
And like Jamie mentioned, we also have not done a lot of advertising because we're fairly unique. And we're not in the market that a lot of people are in. So people source us. That's changed a bit. We are starting to market more kind of now. But yes, initially it was clients contacting us and then us just doing start to finish design build like Claude does. Different product, of course, but yeah, same sort of company structure as these guys do. And I mean, the thing about Jamie is he's got his niche in what he does in specialties, and Claude as well does some amazing stuff that I could never think to do, and then we do the stuff that Claude wouldn't do and Jamie doesn't necessarily do. So it's kind of a three different companies, but similar arrangement, I think.
Okay. Yeah, similar in that you're kind of at the edge of things, and you know what I mean, and different for compared to traditional fabric stuff, compared to awnings, compared to you know what I mean, like it was concepts that you kind of brought to the market in a lot of ways, right?
I don't think we brought anything to the market. I think we've just been responsive.
To what
to architectural creative need, and taking a napkin sketch and converting it to a product, to a fulfilled, executed expression.
Was there a particular event or job or even a person that kind of helped you along the way when you first got started?
I think you asked that, Alex. I thought that was a great. I go back, for us it was Celebration Park. Actually, it was Nautica Center in Cleveland, and we were at Claude Sentner was Fabritech, and we were bang on. We were both the same size business. We were both $3.5 million, and here we were pursuing this job. And of course, he's taken off, and Pfeiffer, and now they've been purchased by Enclosed. They're on such a different. It's a construction company,
right? And
same with Bird Air, and even Structure Flexes has made a significant change where they are. So then there's where I'd say that our worlds are between sort of a ma canvas shop to a significant player, because we're niche, construction oriented. We understand sort of the process, the project management obligation, the time that goes into it, rather than the product and the sell. It's a great article if you ever want to look it up. Jerry Gramad wrote, because as he got into tension structures, right? If you remember, he just lost his shirt because he never you never budgeted the time that would go into,
Right.
you know, executing
Right.
the project. And so I think we offer this to the likes of our industry to support people who want to get into a project, because we want to do it. We want to express it, but there's an opportunity to, whether it's profit share or margin share, whatever you want to go after, because it's silly for people to go through a whole learning curve on their own. And
Right.
it's one of those things that's not natural to just share with somebody or train somebody in how to get into this industry. But my take on this.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not, I think what you're saying, Jamie, the last bit there was, it is very unique what we do. So I think, is that what you were saying? Sort of that you can't just train someone, you need the expertise from different areas.
And I think it's personalized. I think it's a knowledge, experience-based knowledge that by making a ton of mistakes rather than sharing how to be successful.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree.
Et à mesure que l'entreprise se développe, on se spécialise dans nos créneaux. Souvent, quand quelqu'un va m'appeler pour avoir une toile comme Bryden va faire, je vais le référer chez lui.
Ouais.
Pas parce que j'ai pas
Ouais.
les machines à coudre ou la possibilité de le faire, mais lui, il va le faire beaucoup plus rapidement, mieux, à un meilleur prix que moi, parce que lui, he knows how to do it.
Right.
Tandis que moi, ben, tu sais, il faut que, ben, moi, ce que je fais, je sais comment le faire, tu sais.
Ouais.
Il y a comme, tôt ou tard, on développe une spécialité, même si notre spécialité, c'est de faire du custom, puis de réinventer la roue sur les projets, ça reste notre spécialité. Là. Donc, quand on prend un projet que d'autres maîtrisent, ben, c'est comme dit Jamie, le learning curve fait qu'on...
Ouais, le roue, il est déjà fait.
Ben, oui, c'est ça. Fait que là, on s'en va vers un... Nous, ce qu'on aime faire, c'est ce qui ne s'est pas fait. T'sais. Donc, quand on arrive à quelque chose qui s'est fait, ben, on le sait, on connaît des bons partenaires qui peuvent le faire parce que eux autres, ils l'ont fait, ça. T'sais. Fait qu'on va pas perdre du temps là-dedans, parce que on rend pas service aux clients. On se rend pas service non plus. T'sais. Fait qu'on est bien mieux rendre service à nos amis, puis développer. Fait que notre business, moi, Solertia, on l'a développé vraiment pour du custom. Puis la machine est faite pour ça.
And take that one step, because it comes outside of there's components to this whole thing, whether it be the product, so steel, fabric, cables, glue lamps, so structural, membrane, tensioning methods, and then but then outside of that, there's design development, there's the architectural engineering collaboration of coming up with expressive and practical. And design output or reactions for foundation design, site construction, site access, site considerations or construction considerations. So developing something with the end in mind, and this is again I compliment Claude because I think he's a good visionary of where the architect or a designer is going to try to stay on track with that, because it's very easy to come back and say, here's the standard product that'll fulfill what you want, but that's not what he wants. So you gotta be there and be respectful of that process all the way through, which is can be very, very frustrating because it takes a long time and patience, and you need to and to be always engaged in that relationship. You can't hand it to a project manager to do it. There's a side you need to be engaged throughout, and then you're limited to how much you can grow if you're honoring that kind of philosophy of how you want to conduct business.
To be fair, that actually was the next question that I wanted to pose to the group, and Jamie kind of. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. That's the last time I shared the script in advance. No, but to understand it. So the first question was about how did you attract business and how did you attract your customers, but because of how custom and how what I mean, like it's maybe outside of the realm of what people normally know and what they do. How do you approach that first meeting with a customer? Like, what's the approach? Like, is it really just getting their idea of what it is that they want, and that what I mean? Like, what's the process when you're doing stuff that's that
listening, probing, listening. Sorry, this mic.
No.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What's your?
Ben, définitivement, poser des questions, comprendre le vrai besoin, le besoin de fond. Souvent, même ce besoin-là, il est pas clairement exprimé. Donc, d'aller chercher ça, puis voir comment on peut répondre à ce besoin-là. Puis encore une fois, parfois les gens, je me gêne pas non plus pour parler tout de suite de prix, pour mettre le client à l'aise de OK, tu as un projet, mettons-le sur la table, je vais comprendre c'est quoi, je vais te dire si je peux t'aider. Et c'est pas de façon prétentieuse, si je peux t'aider, sinon je peux te dire qui va t'aider. moi, mon approche, c'est tout le temps de quand j'ai un client devant moi, l'important, c'est qu'il reparte avec la ressource, reparte satisfait. Même si je ne peux pas le servir, il va savoir qui appeler, comment, quels sont les gens de confiance dans l'industrie. Il peut même me rappeler pour me dire, OK, tu sais, je peux accompagner le client vers l'autre, tu sais, on pourrait voir comme un compétiteur, mais je pense pas que ça l'est. L'important, c'est que le client soit bien servi. À partir du moment que le client est bien servi, ben, il fait mousser notre industrie parce qu'il va en parler à l'autre, va parler à l'autre. Puis, j'espère que quand il va en parler, il va dire, ben, appelle Solercia, les autres vont te dire comment faire ton processus, même si eux autres te le font. Fait que c'était une autre façon et ça marche. J'ai toujours fonctionné comme ça et ça marche. J'ai des gens qui m'appellent, puis, tu sais, je vais les aider.
Ouais.
Je rouvre mon carnet d'adresses, je les aide, je réfère des vendeurs des revendeurs de toiles ou des manufacturiers et ça fonctionne.
Ouais.
Donc,
Et ça te
l'important,
va bien.
c'est toujours de répondre aux besoins du client. Si c'est pas pour toi, trouve la bonne ressource. Mais on vend pas de toute façon des produits faits. Peut-être que je parlerais différemment si j'avais une warehouse pleine d'auvents de type A. Puis là, il faut que je les écoule, mais j'en ai pas tout ça. C'est la façon que nous, on travaille.
Thank God you understand. So now you can follow what everybody's talking about.
I got some of that, but the gist of back to Jamie said, for us, it's the same thing as listening, finding out the needs. It's really simple. We do have we're kind of smaller structures than these guys typically, so it's pretty easy for us to figure out what the need is and then offer the best option. And showing them is another huge thing for us.
Right.
So they don't really know what they need. They know what they like or see in a picture, but they don't really know how to get there. So showing them based on what they're asking is how we'll largely do it. And it's something we do all day, every day is creating the environment and creating the space in 3D for them so they can visualize, and then they're wowed by that, and then we take it through the phases of the product, either we're supplying the product or doing the whole project. So listening and showing them what they can achieve in the space. Kind of.
Stakeholder, I was just gonna, but the base, it's funny, we just did training on other types of buildings last week, and the guy kept referring to the wife who was where the objections come from. Was it, well, can I speak to your wife? And, which is, in presentation is a big part of that, but usually, so stakeholders, so it doesn't matter whether it's huge or small, it's who are the stakeholders, who makes decisions, who has the purse strings, and who has the vision. What is the budget that they're trying to work towards? Which, of course, a lot of people are just asking that. They don't have a clue where they're even starting point. And then, of course, the schedule. So there are intake forms that are pretty straightforward, and the rest is fodder to fill that in. Another thing I compare to Owens Corning, I remember meeting this guy, and he takes these huge reports, and he's a simplifier. He has to take that down to a one-pager for a go, no-go decision. And I think that's what with more experience, this is what we can do kind of efficiently. And I think is to try to capture the essence of where they're trying to get to.
I kind of want to build off my last question. You know, when you first started, what were the barriers of entry like? Would you think it's harder today for a younger company to join this type of business?
Oh, they could buy mine.
Yeah, they could buy.
I'd give it.
Yeah, with those interest rates. But what are the barriers of entry today versus back when you started?
I would say my opinion would be it's the resources that you can draw upon. So I'd say that those resources, engineering, trustworthy and capable fabricators, alliance partners who get things done, installation, it's really the experience that's out there. So where's the barrier? It's knowing the axis of evil, right? I've got a great axis of evil of all the people that have screwed me over the years that I know who not to work with, and it's a short list of trusted resources to get things done. Anyways, and trusted competitors or people that I would even refer business or suggest that they are a good competitor. I don't know. Does that answer that?
Yeah.
I think for us, the barrier to entry at the beginning, I'm glad you asked both times. So in the past and now, two different times, but the barrier of entry for our company was knowledge. Nobody really knew what the product was and didn't know that they necessarily needed it. And so, or wanted it. So there was that piece that took time for people to understand even what it was, what shade sails are, or even tension fabrics way a long time ago. But so that was a big barrier to entry, getting exposed to the market. And as Jamie says, then the other barrier is, okay, who is your team? Who do you work with, engineers? Who do you can rely on construction wise? And so that was another challenge. Different than today, I think. If someone were starting, I think that people understand what the product is in a lot of ways. It's more in the market. It's you see it much more around with your products as well. I mean, they're just more product out there. So the knowledge of the product is huge, more than it was. So I think if you were starting today, you'd have that step up that from what we had, and you probably could speak to that with all the years that you started. I mean, years ago.
Well, and I'd say today it's the things that haven't been done yet.
Right.
So we just completed Canada's Diversity Gardens, which was all about innovating through the process. Took a $4 million project into a $9 million expense. But through that is engineering, development, testing of anyways, it's grueling, and who would have ever thought? But these are the leaders. They fund this kind of stuff, and that tells you where you don't want to be. The type of projects that we learn from these things. That's the value in it. And so what's fun though is to think that it'd be nice, we can say that the things that haven't been completed yet, and that's the challenge, and that's where the architect comes up with, or designer. That's the fun part.
So it's like
Ça, c'est la partie de fun.
open canvas, kind of when you started, we didn't know where you were going,
Canvas.
open
Well done,
canvas.
Alex.
Yeah, there you go. We might name it Open Canvas, this podcast. No, but today, when you say it's the new things that haven't been done, it's still an open canvas for
Sure.
someone who's
Sure.
just started.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like you finding application for fabric use outside of what we all know, right?
Exactly.
Moi, je dirais
Concrete
que
forming and
quand j'ai parti Solertia, il y a 23 ans, la première barrière que j'ai rencontrée pour l'architecture textile, c'était en toile, parce que la perception des gens, c'était la membrane, c'est quelque chose qui est cheap. Les abris tempo, c'est génial, les abris tempo. On peut pas faire mieux que ça, là. C'est comme, puis ça répond bien aux besoins, mais les gens, ils ont une perception que c'est cheap. Puis il faut que ça soit cheap, parce qu'on veut avoir l'abri le plus cheap possible, parce qu'on veut pas payer pour qu'on s'en sert juste 6 mois par année, Le stade olympique, qui est la membrane, Aujourd'hui, je rencontre plus ça. Aujourd'hui, les gens sont beaucoup plus éduqués. Ils savent qu'il existe des produits. Ils ont vu des produits. On en a fait. Après qu'ils aient vu le biodôme qu'on a fait, je pense que là, ils font comme OK. Il y a de quoi faire en intérieur, c'est clair. Puis quand ils voient les autres produits qu'on a pu faire à l'extérieur, ils savent. Fait qu'on a plus cette barrière-là de la qualité. Fait que particulièrement les architectes, ils viennent vers nous en sachant, je veux ça, j'ai vu ça à tel endroit, j'ai vu ça, dans le sud, j'ai vu, ils ont vu des choses, puis ils cherchent cette qualité-là. Fait que ça, c'est plus un gros enjeu de commencer à expliquer, non, c'est durable, c'est de la bonne membrane, ça dure 20 ans, ça dure 40 ans, ça dure, on n'est plus là. Aujourd'hui, je pense que les gens ont besoin de voir la variété des applications possibles. Ça, il y a encore de l'éducation à faire dessus. J'ai des architectes avec qui j'ai travaillé sur des intérieurs. Écoute, j'ai fait 3 projets avec eux autres, puis quand je lui dis, OK, mais là, ça, tu pourrais l'appliquer en extérieur. Ça va à l'extérieur. C'est comme, tu me niaises, là. Ça fait 4 ans qu'on travaille ensemble. Mais c'est vrai. Puis d'autres avec qui on a fait des membranes acoustiques font comme, tu peux mettre ça dehors. C'est comme, oui, puis je peux, Donc, il y a beaucoup d'éducation parce que la variété des matériaux est énorme, là. Elle est énorme, puis des capacités, puis des épaisseurs, puis c'est les coloris, donc il y a beaucoup d'éducation à faire, à emmener les clients à voir que, particulièrement les concepteurs, que c'est un bassin là, sans fin de ce qu'on peut faire avec la membrane.
Ouais. Alors, en fait, c'est toujours l'éducation, c'est juste qu'on est rendu plus élevé en termes de ce qu'on a besoin de les éduquer. Like they're at a different level. The education still needs to be done, but it's at a different level. At least the basics are there and people understand that
J'ai de moins en moins d'appels, ça arrive encore.
Credibility. There's credibility there.
Yeah.
Right.
And this
the credibility has been established.
That's what's happened. And you go to the
Longtemps, je recevais des appels des clients qui disent OK, on travaille sur un projet, puis ils sont pas capables de le faire en dur, peu importe les matériaux traditionnels. OK, on aimerait ça le faire en membrane. Pourquoi? Ben, pour que ça coûte moins cher. C'est pas. Non, tu vas avoir autre chose. Tu vas avoir la luminosité, tu vas avoir si il faut vendre les propriétés.
Right.
C'est pas, mais en tout cas, oui, on peut couvrir avec une membrane plus économique, la fabrique ou je sais pas tout, mais c'est pas ça qu'ils veulent, tu sais. Fait que
Right.
donc, de casser cette perception-là, tu sais,
Right.
mais c'est de moins en moins, tu sais. Il y a de plus en plus d'appels qui sont directement, on veut ça, tu sais.
Right. And to be fair, that actually kind of leads again into the next question. Well done, guys. I appreciate you following the script. And Jamie kind of touched on it earlier. He said, the one thing that, I forget the article you referenced where, somebody lost their shirt because they weren't calculating the time that goes into the projects. So I'm curious then, what's the next step? And now you've kind of broken that impression that, okay, fabric is cheaper because with the projects you're doing, not necessarily, it's just that you're looking for a different result. So then what are the next steps with a client? Like, how do you set expectations? Like, is it easy at this point with your experience now based on the square footage and the size of the project to kind of set an overall budget that's going to give them an idea or at least give you room to maneuver? Or is it, what are those next phases to go along or wherever? So you're not investing too much in the project and hitting a wall and, and they understand what they're getting into and, and you're able to kind of make yourselves understood that way. Jamie, you just touched on a project that went from 4 million to 9 million. That's maybe one thing if you're working with a government and and once it started, they got to keep going, but it's a different thing when you're working with in the private sector, right?
I'd ask that differently. And in average, what would you say the fabric value of projects that you've completed are of the overall project value?
Oh, very small. Yeah, the fabric piece.
Right.
The fabric piece is the cheapest part.
The roll itself?
No, the finished
membrane.
But Jamie, are you referring to overall projects that your structure and fabric is part of, or are you referring to the fabric as part of it? Yeah, you're talking about an overall build, right?
Our intimate, our lane.
Right.
Okay, so you got the fabric, the hardware, the structure,
installation, design,
but also versus an overall build or a construction site. You know what I mean? Like when it's a part of something else. I believe that's what you're asking, right?
Well, because it puts context.
Context,
right.
And
I'll tell you where I come from is because I came out of a place where we were a fabric manufacturer.
Right.
That's how we absorbed overhead. Our labor was our labor and equipment was absorbed by converting roll goods into finished product.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, my brother said, "You're taking our business out of what we do." Hence we separated. And then I had a tensile integrity business that was based on just that, but it's still fabric was only a small component of it. So,
right.
And I would say that for me, I would say it's going to be between 10 to 15, 20% max is the value of the fabric.
Depends if you include the foundation or not.
Oh, no, take that out. I'm just saying a fabric tension structure project.
Okay. Above
grade. Anyway,
depending on the complexity of the unit, between 20 to 30, I would say. It could be to 35, 40, then you got something really complex as a fabric.
Yeah, it'd be like a Canada's Wonderland type application or something like that. Bryden, I think, would even be less because the cost of the fabric, but a ton goes into it otherwise and you make a ton of money, so a lot of it's margin.
Yeah, you're right though. The fabric is such a small part of it. And when you design build like we do with the construction side, the engineering is the costs.
And hence the reason we changed our model to become more construction oriented. A lot of these big players, that's the only way that they have to be construction oriented groups, project management, construction management, site work, site compliance issues and training and all the things that take you way outside of being on the factory floor that converts a product.
And back to your question, Mark, when you said how do you, I think you said, how do you determine budget or where do you bring that up?
Yeah, like what are those next steps? How do you get started? Set the customer's expectations so you're on the same page.
We do that like at the beginning,
right?
Like it's before we spend much time. So
Right.
it's very, and it's a lot of our projects are nowhere near as elaborate as these guys, so
Right.
it's pretty easy for us to get a ballpark price around it, throw that to them. And that could be for us, could be could be $20,000 for a school park or something, or school area, and or $3,000 to a residential customer.
Right.
And we will float those numbers at very, very close to the beginning to get them an understanding of what they're up against. And and then with residential, which we do a lot of, that's a lot of the time it's the fabric piece that we're quoting, right? We're not quoting necessarily construction because they're going to take care of that themselves. We'll guide them.
Right.
But so that a lot of time we're dealing with people that will do their own construction when we're dealing with residential. Whereas of course we'll do it a full design build for a school or a public space. So again, either one though, the numbers are upfront.
What kind of, if you don't mind answering this question, what kind of percentage is the contingency? So let's say you tell a customer it costs $10,000, but it's really costing you higher than you thought, or is there a contingency component?
Very little. I think we have it fairly dialed that we know. I mean, there used to be, and sure, I think we have sometimes in projects we have a 10% consideration.
Okay.
But I don't know about you guys, what do you have in there? But we're fairly knowing where we're going to be at, especially for residential. I mean, there's no contingency there, so there's no allowance there.
Pour nous, ça va varier selon l'étape du projet. Quand le client nous appelle et nous demande, OK, donne-moi un ballpark sur telle chose, on va mettre 20% de contingence.
Okay.
Dès qu'on va un peu plus loin on fait le concept, donc on est capable de voir c'est quoi, on va descendre à 15. Ensuite, il y a l'étude préliminaire. Tu sais, dans le next step, le concept est accepté. Dans l'étude préliminaire, on va dimensionner vraiment les structures. On va finaliser la grosseur de la quincaillerie. Là, on va descendre à 10. On va faire après ça l'autre étape qui sont les plans de vie. Là, on va préciser tous les détails. Puis ça, quand on part en production, on est à 5%. Okay. Donc, c'est l'incertitude. La contingence, c'est le volume d'incertitude. Et on le dit à notre client. Okay. Je t'envoie un budget à 20%. Je t'envoie un budget à 10. Je t'envoie un budget à 5. On est rendu à 5.
I want the translated version of this.
Yeah, that's a lot of transparency.
That's a secret.
Well, obviously, it's in French.
Secret. So I'll do my best to translate that. So what Claude was saying, and actually it's very interesting.
I can speak English.
Let us translate for you.
So I thought you guys wanted me to throw them off.
Americans would appreciate
it. I was gonna do the real translation. He was gonna tell you what he wanted. That's the difference, right? So let me actually just so I can paraphrase to see if I fully understood it. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Claude's approach is to build in more contingency, the more uncertainty there is in the unit. So at the outset, in the early goings, he'll have a 20% contingency plan. And then when he works out some more of the details and gets to, and the project has gone further along, and I guess the site is better set up, he's down to, 15%. Then when he gets into, the hardware and knows that the hardware set up and the structures are a little more clear, and he's dropping to 10%. And by the time it's really the concept, and he's got it down to a real plan, a real it's all sorted out. He's at 5%, and he's fully transparent with the customers that there's a 20% contingency when he sends them that quote, that there's 15, that there's 10, and that there's 5.
And that's in honor of a typical architect, the class of estimate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they ask for it.
Yeah, just normal.
And for commercial. For commercial clients, same for us. We're openly, we don't necessarily speak to the percentage.
Right.
But we'll say this is a broad concept right now. The budget could change significantly less when we know more information. But we're going to quote you higher. Right. And so
or with a bigger range.
Right, correct. Bigger range, yeah.
Mais un des challenges quand on fait des prix comme ça avec les clients, c'est souvent les clients vont nous appeler pour remplacer un matériel. Okay? Donc, ils travaillaient avec du métal déployé ou ils travaillaient avec de l'aluminium, ils travaillaient avec d'autres choses. Puis là, ils appellent, ils disent, OK, peux-tu me faire ça en toile? Si je lui donne le prix au pied carré d'une réalisation en toile, mettons pour une façade, il va jumper. T'sais? Parce que lui, sa structure en arrière est à toutes les 24 pouces. Ce gars-là a une structure en arrière.
Right.
Mais moi, c'est du lightweight structure, big span.
Right.
Fait qu'il faut pas comparer les prix. Fait que ça, c'est une des lignes d'éducation dans lesquelles on est actuellement. Je commence toujours mes présentations en disant la membrane est un matériau de construction comme les autres matériaux, le bois, l'acier, le verre, le béton. Elle a ses propriétés, elle a ses durabilités qui sont compétitives avec tous les autres matériaux, parce qu'il y a pas de membranes qui ont des grandes résistances. Donc, considérer ça comme un matériel de construction au même titre que les autres. Maintenant, on l'applique où? On peut faire un pont en verre. Ben, c'est rare qu'on le fait. On peut le faire en toile aussi. Donc, la membrane, elle a ses propriétés. Et là, je parle des propriétés, des résistances des membranes, aussi qu'on s'en va, parce que notre métier, c'est de la mettre en forme, cette membrane-là. Je peux parler de comment elle réagit dans l'espace. Donc, avant de parler de prix, il faut d'abord éduquer le client, qu'il sache que la membrane, c'est un matériau de construction et ça se travaille de telle façon. Okay. Donc, à partir du moment qu'ils comprennent, puis on l'a vécu à quelques reprises avec des films où, entre autres, à l'intérieur des piscines olympiques, le centre sportif, il y avait l'architecte avait conçu un mur traditionnel de poutres, G-Proc et tout le kit, et là, il voulait couvrir son mur avec de la membrane. Donc, nous, on est arrivés, on se fait comme no needs for the wall, on va s'attacher juste en périphérie. On a fait des panneaux qui pouvaient mesurer 80 pieds puis qu'on a tendu dans l'espace. Il n'y avait plus de structure. Fait que mon prix de membrane était plus cher que
ce qu'il voulait comme pour
sa tapisserie qu'il voulait mettre sur le mur.
Oui.
Mais quand j'ai fait sauter tout le restant et que tout était fait en atelier, moi, mon temps d'installation a été quoi? 1 semaine, 2 semaines? Alors que tout ça aurait pris 3 mois à construire, tu sais. Ouais. Fait que le temps de construction, tu sais, le prix, finalement, j'étais beaucoup plus cheap que la construction traditionnelle dans cette application-là précise. Donc, okay. il y a vendre la membrane pour ses propriétés de toutes les sortes, là, comme un matériau de construction. Ouais.
I'd like that translated too, please. Anyways, but not right now. And sorry, I want to bring that back to what Brian said in the first place. No, I'd like to share all this with you. I'm thinking about the Americans listening to this, because they're going to be curious. There's some good content that I got the gist of. But I do come back because Brian said in the first place, in the old days, it would have been high contingency. Now, with experience, which you're talking about, you reduce that, even in your rationale, right, of complexity and so.
Right. But I'll be pleased to share that with you.
I'd like that.
More we educate, more work we're going to have.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good point.
We need to share those information.
Yeah. To save that for the closing remarks.
Basically, the fabric is like a construction material. C'est ça. Yeah. You have to teach the client that how it works, how it's its resistance, that sort of thing.
Comes out of the toolkit, which is one of many tools.
That's what. Yeah, the gist of it.
But they don't realize that until you say, that's another construction material.
And that there's some things suited for some applications and some not.
That's right. They don't realize the tool is available to them.
Yeah.
But you should.
Time's up.
Great.
That is.
We didn't think of that. Just, it's a little bit like the Flintstones around here. You remember the Flintstones?
I remember the Gong Show.
Every day. Not every day.
So does that mean it was the wrong answer?
No.
I have no idea what I'm saying. Anyway.
And open the trap.
Yeah. They didn't know that they, as fabric as a tool, that they have it their access to, right? So
right.
I think Claude is right. You have to, that's an education piece, and
but again, qualifiers: FR, color,
right,
transparency, porosity.
Yeah, or what weather conditions. And they can withstand.
Yeah, which is exact again the next question. You guys are always jumping ahead like this. You know what? Just an indication. I mean, given that it is as custom as it is, like how do you go about choosing the fabric for the customer? And I think we've got an idea that there's a lot of questions involved, but with the different projects that you're working on, how do you arrive at that? How do you get there with the customers?
En évaluant comme il faut le besoin du client.
Right.
That.
Yeah. Is that recommend? Did you say recommendation?
Based on the evaluation of the needs of the customer.
Yeah. Dans certains cas, admettons, on fait une façade et puis d'emblée, on voudrait vendre un produit qui va durer 20 ans, mais la personne dit, je veux l'imprimer. L'impression ne va pas durer 20 ans. Fait que tu baisses de qualité de produit pour ajuster ta membrane avec la durée.
Okay.
I missed that part.
So what he was saying, he said if a customer is looking to print on the thing, right? So he might put up something that would last 20 years, but if he knows the print's only going to last, say 10, then he's going to downgrade
Okay.
the material to match with the printing. So that's when it
Yeah.
needs to be replaced.
I see, right.
Sort of thing, or whatever. So
Or
don't oversell it. Sort of. Like,
Yeah.
Aussi, ils te demandent pour un événement, la toile va être là 6 mois. Okay? If they ask for an event, an expo universelle or something like this, don't sell a product that
No.
will last for 20 years.
Right.
No use. No,
Yeah,
they're
I
going to
think-
trash it.
I think, exactly. So Claude does the same as we do. We're just, honestly, if you just tell us what you want, then we'll tell you what you should have.
Right.
We're not going to sell you something that you don't need or that
Right.
is too expensive to sell, to make more money. It doesn't make any sense. So I think Claude does the exact same thing. If they need that, and typically if you just let us make that decision for you, you're going to get the best thing for you
Right.
from us. At least.
Right.
I always laugh because here, I think of a roll good manufacturer, no names named. But the customer had called in, spoke to a customer service rep. And got a recommendation on a fabric type. And this is by not asking questions, somebody's being misdirected right off the bat. Got specified into a package where it was being utilized. Turned out to be a tarp fabric, non-FR, and yet it made it all the way to the bidding, so then there's a qualification. Anyways, it is so fundamental, again, experience. It's asking questions but having your staff
But
be
the bad
knowledgeable
things,
in some of those.
Some
very-
manufacturer will bid on.
Mhm. Knowing that it's the wrong fabric, knowing that,
Well,
Or not knowing if it goes to.
Or not knowing,
yeah, if it's not a
but-
fabric.
But I think in some cases, some people will bid, we have this all the time, that we get something specified somewhere before us.
Well, this is your side of the table.
Yeah,
This is your, you
absolutely.
guys.
And it comes down, to
Absolutely.
it's like,
I know why you didn't want to name anything.
And then when it gets to that point, and we say, we're gonna bid on it, we say, well, wait, this is spec wrong, you shouldn't be even specifying this non-FR fabric for this application. So then you've gotta go back and try to get a hold of the architect and say, where did you specify this?
Right.
Because who gave you the information? And you try to educate. There's
Right.
times where we have to do that.
It becomes a white paper of, but buyer beware. You need
Yeah.
to. You
Mais
need to
encore
share.
là, quand on a un client comme ça, qu'on veut lui proposer quelque chose qui est juste pour son besoin, on se doit de l'éduquer. Donc, on va lui montrer toutes les options. Fait que souvent, on va faire ça. On va prendre un peu plus de temps. On va lui montrer l'option 30 ans, l'option 20 ans, l'option ça. On dit ça, c'est ce qu'il te faut. Et des fois, le client va choisir l'autre parce qu'il aime mieux le pattern, il aime mieux le feeling. Tu sais, but he knows. Hein? Il sait qu'il vient de payer plus cher pour ça parce qu'il veut ça. Ben, on va toujours profiter du fait. Et lorsqu'on emmène un client un peu plus loin que son besoin, well, we make him dream for the next time. Always selling.
This is, so back to Claude's point of education, this is ATA's responsibility of sharing and publishing and educating and those, and they're pretty fundamental and simple messages that need to be communicated.
Actually, along those lines and in closing, what do you guys feel? Well, first of all, I mean, I know what I would say, and I think you've all three of you been instrumental in furthering our industry and really helping us gain, to your point, Jamie, credibility in the market at large, like helping the overall market construction and people to kind of see what can be done with fabric and accept it as a real construction material and an alternative to a lot of the traditional construction materials. What do you think maybe were some of the things that you did there that were most impactful in that way? And maybe more importantly, what do you think needs to be done additionally by organizations like ATA, the people in this room, to help further the industry, to help gain that more recognition and more credibility in the market at large?
Y aller.
Go.
In French?
No, do it in English, just to show that you can speak English.
You don't want to learn the French. I'll do it in French.
Just because there's no video on this,
Yeah.
Claude just grabbed a hold of the microphone and is waiting up on it.
Watch me. Hold their cord.
This is the issue we have in Canada. This is outside of fabric discussion.
Yeah.
What was the question? La façon que nous, on peut améliorer nos conditions, c'est d'abord de partager. More we're going to share, more we're going to know, more we can teach. Et je rencontre beaucoup aujourd'hui, moi je suis quelqu'un qui aime partager. Les connaissances que j'ai, je suis prêt à les donner. There's no secret. Là, c'est comme I know what I'm doing and anyway I'm the best. Fait que... Mais il faut qu'on sorte et qu'on s'ouvre aux autres pour partager. Et en toute humilité. C'est pas parce qu'on fait tel type de produit, là, l'autre, il faut y aller en toute humilité. On travaille avec la membrane et avec des clients. Vos clients vont peut-être passer chez nous, ils vont passer chez nous, ils vont passer chez vous. On a un marché qu'il faut éduquer. On a un marché qu'il faut prendre soin. Puis la seule façon de le faire, c'est, je dis pas de faire un front commun, mais quand on est dans des événements comme ça, ben il faut partager. Puis respecter le know-how des autres, donc de l'entendre, puis de le donner. Avec ça, on est capable d'éduquer mieux, puis on part la roue qu'on parlait tantôt. Catch that one? We need to share more. We share. Don't be shy to share. There's no secret. We do different product with our company, but we still work with fabric. So more people knows about fabric, more we know, better we can teach.
And then beyond, the nice thing about us is that what we aren't capable of doing, we'll refer to other people that are capable of doing so, and vice versa. Things will come to us that too small for Jamie, let's say. He'll say, Brad, and this is, or a couple of times you probably said, what should we do here? And we help Jamie out. So
right. But I liked your first bit synopsis was perfect. So and I agree with that. I think it's industry participation. It's being involved in this ATA group. It's being part of FSA, Fabric Structures Association. Bryden's done his term or will continue. And that's a big thing for everybody that's interested in participating, should contribute to it, be part of it, because it's a network as well. So and it's sharing within and then outside and too.
Even between us, don't be shy to pick up the phone and call others.
Yeah.
Have you ever met this? How did you solve that problem?
Well, that's a forum. That's this whole this communication forum or connect or whatever that's called. It's pretty.
I checked that out.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, that's kind of the whole idea behind even the podcast.
Just got
is to share information, to share stories of how businesses in our industry got to where they are, and I really do appreciate it, and I know, and that's one of the reasons this is such an all-star podcast, is that I know how active all of you have been in our industry, in our organization, in terms of educating, the different presentations that have been done. I know Bryden, even I think even in the last one you were at it again with campfire sessions.
Wrong thing again. Third strike, you're out.
Yeah. I think it's 2 strikes on me so far. I don't know. But that actually, to be fair, it's funny you said the Gong Show. It sounds a little bit more like the Family Feud.
Yes.
But yeah, in terms of the participation in educating the industry, and while for sure, in your case, it was furthering your products and getting people to understand what they could do and what could be done with shade sales and getting that out there. But you've also really helped other people to continue that industry or that business, that niche, beyond you, and you support wherever you can. And
a lot of people are American as well, and they'll go off and start their own business or help develop their own business with that. And the lunch and learns that we do, that the ATA course actually is a fabric lunch and learn. It's not shade sale. It can't be shade sale specific. It has to be about all kinds of fabric use. So
for us,
so that's broadening everybody's business in the market, not just ours. So I think as Claude's saying, sharing and knowing that Claude's specializing and Jamie's specializing in their bit, and I frankly don't want to get involved. It's too much for us.
Right.
So it's nice to know that I don't have to. That I can say, okay, that's not us. You have to go to these guys, kind of thing.
But you guys have also stayed in your lanes. You know what I mean? So if you're competing on a job that's awning, everybody, like, there's a lot of awning companies here. They want to share with each other, but they also want the business. You're in the business to do business. So like, how do you find that balance? Is, you know what I mean? That there's a balance there without giving your trade secrets or.
Yeah, and I think you highlight something. Awning guys are here, and I don't want to get involved in awnings. It's a whole different world. Sure, I could think, oh, there might be money opportunities if I did that. And I think a lot of the awning guys are the same. Is that shades as a totally different. You know, you have a shop, you're sewing, yes, but it's a totally different product.
Right.
And changing gears of what you're doing. So we do the same thing. We kind of stay away from the awnings, and I think most awning people stay away from what we do, and these guys stay away. So it's lanes, as you say.
Yeah.
I'm in the awning industry.
Now you are, yes.
With Entreprise RIM.
Yes.
So, but we are doing B2B, so.
Mhm.
But with the same mentality, you know, for our customer at RIM or Solercia, the share thing is always there, you know. So it's a good thing if we are two company now, so we can share information between our two and to the client as well. So and it happened in the past two years that a client, a RIM client, which is always a business, have a needs, then get through Solercia, so we can respond and, you know, and but I get
Different options.
Actually, really quickly, because we have a live audience, we want to see if there's actually any questions from the audience. So a little experiment for our first live podcast. Anybody have any questions for the panel up? I promise the buzzer won't go off.
You mentioned
No.
You mentioned the importance for to educate and comparison with structural elements versus lightweight and soft materials. Is there any consideration of the carbon footprint impact with this your
de plus en plus.
the warnings and the information?
Yeah.
Convince our customers to consider a compared to
So before
material, carbon footprint is below for the carbon material.
Before you answer the question, I'm just going to repeat it so that it probably wouldn't have picked up for the recording. But so the question is about carbon footprint. So in addition to education, you know, the carbon footprint of fabric projects versus other types of construction, correct?
De plus en plus, les architectes vont nous demander, là, tu sais, in French or in English, I'm confused. You got me there.
It's however you want to do it, Clark.
Jamie disagrees.
De plus en plus, les clients, les architectes vont nous demander c'est quoi le footprint de la membrane parce que on travaille beaucoup avec le PVC. Le PVC base de pétrole, produit qui est plus difficilement recyclable étant donné que c'est deux matières qui sont additionnées ensemble pour créer le produit. C'est vrai qu'on n'est pas performant au niveau de la membrane elle-même dans le côté recyclable. Par contre, les manufacturiers comme Serge Ferrari nous fournissent beaucoup de données sur le gain en luminosité, le gain en bien-être, parce que la partie green d'un projet, c'est pas juste l'économie d'argent sur le côté recyclable. Tu as toute une partie bien-être de l'environnement, tu sais, il y a beaucoup l'acoustique, il y a beaucoup d'éléments qui sont pris en considération. Fait que sur certains éléments, on score pas fort. On s'entend que pour la membrane, côté isolation thermique, on n'est pas ultra performant. Par contre, côté membrane, avec la translucidité, là, on devient plus performant au niveau de l'éclairage. Si on met cette membrane-là à l'extérieur du bâtiment, on filtre les rayons du soleil, on devient ultra performant. Donc, on a des grandes économies sur les coûts d'énergie, grande économie sur le confort aussi. Tous les buildings vitrés qu'on voit au centre-ville, là, j'ai regardé un dernièrement qui a été bâti, là, ils ont toutes des stores à l'intérieur. Tu sais. La pire place pour arrêter le soleil, c'est à l'intérieur. La chaleur est déjà rendue. Fait que là, tu mets un store pour protéger ta vue. Tu sais, tu mets la toile à l'extérieur, boum, you solve the problem, ça pue la chaleur à l'intérieur, tu sais, fait que tu as l'économie. Fait qu'il y a des endroits où on est performant. Encore, la membrane est un matériau de construction comme les autres, tout aussi valable. Il faut juste le mettre dans son contexte, puis il y a des utilités là que les autres matériaux ne peuvent pas performer. C'est ça qu'il faut accentuer. Fait qu'il y a des réponses à donner aux architectes quand la question du green vient sur la table.
Right.
Puis il n'y a pas de gêne, on n'est pas en train de raconter des salades. C'est comme si tu me demandes de faire un dôme une couche, puis performant au niveau énergétique, j'y arrive pas. C'est pas la bonne chose.
So,
C'est bon?
and in Claude's question for Serge Ferrari, who's here today, you managed to get a
I'm
plug
like
in.
a party pooper today.
No, that was fantastic. You managed to get in a plug for the other sponsor of our workshop today, Serge Ferrari, who Claude said has been great at educating him as far as what fabrics are best used for luminosity or for the different factors and performance measures that you're looking for.
But it's very hard to recycle PVC, and it's costly. So
Yeah.
that's where our issue lies right now, is finding a way to do it at a low cost recycling.
Yeah.
PVC.
But the overall construction is lightweight and efficient in regards to a carbon
Right.
footprint.
Yeah.
So they're above grade. I assume you talked about below grade, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
not so friendly because of big reactions.
Yeah, you're right. Le fait qu'on utilise moins de matériaux aussi, pour faire le même job, ça vient jouer, ça a un gros impact sur le footprint.
But even that can be accomplished by other alternative foundation systems and methodologies to make them light and efficient. And again, tensegrity type mentality or philosophy.
Merci beaucoup la question.
Mhm.
Excellent question. Thank you. We're coming to the end of the podcast in the last couple of minutes. So listen, I'd really like to thank you gentlemen for being here today, for taking the time, for in Brian's case, coming a long way. Jamie's case coming a fair way as well. Is that, well, you were already all the way in California, actually, when
Exactly.
when you called me on Friday, I was like, hey, what are these traveling plans? I got
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So we're coming to you live from Montreal, and everybody was complaining about the cold, but it is unseasonably warm right now for
Me, I came to the coffee and the Timbits. So.
Yeah.
You had me there when you said the coffee and Timbits. I'm there.
You're not simple.
You knew how to get it.
Well, like a pigeon.
If we're talking recommendations, I think we need a bigger
Yeah, I was
platform
gonna
to
say.
fit the size of the egos you brought in. Fitting well.
We actually did expand the stage, believe it or not. That's a whole other story.
You know
But,
me since so long.
and believe it or not, I think Claude, didn't you cancel a vacation down south for the Timbits and the coffee?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, is it? Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you,
Alex,
guys.
thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for co-hosting, and that wraps up another edition of Talking Textiles.